Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So I just wanted to do this quick video about shadow banning, because if you're trying to create alternative media or anything else right now, you might be shadow banned. Or alternatively, if you're someone who wants to support people who are creating alternative media or other such things, you might not be able to find them. And while this is by no means in any way exhaustive, I'm simply going to go over a few things that hopefully may be helpful to people. Number one, I'm going to go over a few things that you might want to do if you are participating in making something alternative and want to get it out there on the internet. Two, at least one way you might be able to prove that you are definitely shadow banned or at the very least deranked. And three, I'll try to sprinkle throughout all of that a few things you might do once you learn that you've been deranked or shadow banned in some way. Now, as I said, I'm no expert in this whatsoever. However, I am a really good researcher. I actually did research for decades. So research comes in really handy when you're trying to get around this kind of stuff. And this is something which is very different from my normal thoroughfare. Why? Because I have an Indiegogo campaign open right now. I opened it roughly 2 months ago. There is about 24 hours left in the original campaign, although it will go into demand after that point where you can still get the actual product, but you just don't get any of the freebies that come with ordering within the initial campaign. But the point is that my Indiegogo campaign has been shadow banned. And this is not something unique. It has been happening to a number of crowdfunded comics on Indiegogo over the last about 6 months. I did not think I would be affected because my first campaign went through very smoothly. I thought perhaps it was something within the campaigns themselves, within the material, that was actually activating the fact that Indiegogo did not promote these other campaigns. Because the stuff that I produce is just pure old superhero fun, something that you would find on the newsstand in 1981. So I had assumed that some of those other campaigns were probably offering something a little more out there in what they are trying to produce in their story, other things like that. However, no, mine was shadow banned along with theirs. Now, not every comic is shadow banned on Indiegogo. It seems to only be a select few. What the criteria is to actually derank you or shadow ban you from this platform, nobody knows, but that's kind of the point. You don't know whether or not your campaign is going to be shadow banned or not. And again, the point of why I'm doing this in part is because I have, as you are on right now, a fairly substantial YouTube channel. I have over 21,000 subscribers, which isn't too bad. It's not very large, but it's big enough so that you might think that I could get the word out there about my campaign and people would know about it even though I get shadow banned. However, I'm here to say that's not entirely the case. What prompted me to do this is the fact that I got an email this morning from someone. Again, my campaign has been open for 60 days, almost 60 days, and they said to me, look, I still can't find your campaign. It's been 60 days, I just can't find it. So the point being is that yes, I post the link for my campaign on every video that I do, and I try to get the word out there. So the first thing to do is, and this is the advice that most people keep on asking me about, if you want to create something on your own, especially alternative media, you first need to have a platform whereby you can connect with the people who are going to buy it. That is almost essential at this point. And I came across this advice over 10 years ago when I started to look into self-publishing, and I came across the self-publishing novel world, and that's the first piece of advice they're going to give you. You need to build an audience first. I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive that in order to sell a product, first you need to have an audience. Shouldn't it be you create something, you put it out there, it gets an audience, and then you build that audience little by little? No, you have to actually build the audience first. And on top of that, I'll just have to say, you have to build an audience on more than one platform. Now, I was focusing exclusively on YouTube. That was a bit of a mistake. Why? Because, well, almost right before I started my second campaign, which is the one that is open right now, something happened in my life. There was a hurricane that came through where I live, and it disrupted my usual YouTube upload because, well, we didn't have power for about 2 weeks. And the thing is that the YouTube algorithm will punish you if you do not stick to your upload schedule religiously. So my videos went suddenly from a regular low of about 8,000 views to a high of about 16,000 views to a low of 1 to 2,000 views and a high of about 4 to 6,000 views. So that's a substantial drop. And I'm not saying that in order to say, oh, pity me, pity me. I'm saying that's the way things work. So you should build on more than one kind of platform. I'm not saying more than one video platform. I'm saying something else than video. And I'm trying to build a Twitter following right now. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it is RJ of the Island. You will find different stuff from what I usually post on my YouTube channel, although you will find that stuff as well. And besides that, I cannot overstate the importance of having an email list. If you can create an email list of people who want to actually buy your product, do so. Get that done, because then you will have direct contact with these people that want to buy your product, and that way you can get in contact with them and give them the direct link if you get shadow banned. However, all of these things have a double edge to them, of course. You can't overuse these people's email, because if you do, they'll just ban you or ignore you or put you on spam. And if you concentrate too much on using email, then you're not going to build any kind of a new audience. So there's a positive and a negative to all of these forms of connecting with people, but that's what you need to do. You need to connect almost directly, if possible, with your audience. And a little caveat to that is the fact that, for me anyways, and my experience, I have found that advertising in print media just doesn't work, especially when shadow banning comes into play. Why? Well, because I did actually put out an ad in Alterna Comics, but the fact is that I had to put it out almost 6 months before my campaign was going to go live. And of course, at that time, I would not know what the URL for my campaign was. I wouldn't have the link for it, and I can't publish it. Therefore, what did I do? I put in that ad, just go to Indiegogo and search for my campaign. But again, the point is that if you go to Indiegogo and search even for the exact name of my campaign, since it is shadow banned, it does not show up. And so in effect, that money that I spent on the print media to actually advertise my indie comic was useless. I also tried to substitute this, once I knew that I was shadow banned, with at the very least one internet campaign, whereas I bought ad space on a YouTube channel that has about 100,000 subscribers. And I'll have to say, after that came out, I saw no jump in any kind of sales whatsoever. I certainly did not make my money back on what I spent on the ad. So you might have better luck with that than me. I didn't find I had any luck with it at all. But the point being is that if you leave these things to the point where you're actually going to be shadow banned and you're scrambling to try to get the word out there, you're just not going to do it. You need to, and I repeat this, need to get the word out there and get that email list and get that hype for what you're trying to do ready before you actually launch any kind of campaign where you want to sell something. However, there are also little tricks that you can do. One of the little tricks that I did was to take the link for my new campaign and to insert it into all of the old campaign, which is still searchable. However, that seemed to simply confuse people, and they didn't know why in the world they kept on going to the old campaign, so that didn't work. And one of the other things that I would strongly suggest that you do is to try to get your link for your campaign listed on as many sites as possible. Go out there, certainly, and scream it to the heavens on your Twitter or Facebook or anything else that you're going to use for social media. Try to get that link out there. At the same time, there are other outlets that might publish your link as well. Stuff like Bleeding Fool. You can submit a comic campaign at the very least. Now, they will not publish every one, but they may publish your campaign if it looks good to them. There are other platforms like Indie Comic Zone. Honestly, just do your research, go to Google, type in indie and whatever it is, the thing you're trying to sell, hit as many of those places as you can to see if they will post the link to your project. And certainly they will put the link up there for people to look for it. So it will be out there on the internet in searchable form on other platforms, even though the search bars will ignore it on your specific platform where you're trying to sell it. So there will be, I guess you'd call them adjunct links, so that people can click more than once to get to your campaign. But at the same time, that does seem to confuse some people. And without slighting my audience at all, I will say that older people, if you're trying to sell to older people, the older they are, the less likely they're going to be able to navigate this roadblock that has been thrown up in front of them to receive your material. So after all of that, can you tell whether or not you're actually shadow banned? Well, here's the thing. For Indiegogo, as I said, if you go to their specific search bar and put in my specific name for my campaign, which is the Valiant Heroes, my campaign will not show up. Also, I use other kinds of search engines. I usually use Quant, but sometimes I go to Google just to find out what I can see there, different from Quant. But at the same time, when I try to search for my campaign through those kinds of search engines, at first, they were not showing up. Now, I did complain to Indiegogo, and after a little while, they did show up, or at the very least, other people could find them on Google and other search engines. Now, I'm saying all that because this is not definitive proof whatsoever, because it just might be me being inept and not actually finding these things. However, there is no way to tell unless you record these things. So you might want to record the fact that you're not finding anything, take screenshots and put them in a folder somewhere so you have records of this. That being said, and on that topic, I did send several messages to the help section of Indiegogo. Some were questions, some were complaints. There were a number of them. I think I sent at least 5. Now, for each of these, I received an email back telling me their help section was swamped right now, and someone would get back to me. It would probably take at least a week. However, I sent the first one of those over 2 months ago, and I have received nothing ever back from anyone at Indiegogo. And when I go to the section of the Indiegogo page where it lists my comments and complaints and I can look at them, each of them is listed now as resolved, even though no one has ever contacted me and it appears nothing has changed. So at this point, there's a few things to bring up. Number one, yes, I have gone through Indiegogo's terms of service. It says within their terms of service very specifically that it is up to them whether or not they are going to promote your campaign or not. Now, I took this to mean that it was up to them whether or not they were going to put your campaign at the top of the page or the middle of the page, or if they were going to put it in the trending page, or if it was in a marquee of some kind, because they do actually take some of the campaigns in certain sections and actually say, this campaign is doing really well. This campaign looks really good. You might want to go over and look at this. My first campaign was a campaign like that. I was at the top of the trending page for a little while, about a week. And that does make some kind of sense to me. It's up to them to take what they might think of as winners and put them in the front of the pack so that it makes more money for them, because they do take a hefty chunk off the top. However, if you get down into the weeds and get into that terms of service and read every line, you will see that yes, they specifically state that it is up to them whether or not your campaign actually appears on their own search bar. Now, what would be the reason for this? I don't know. There may be a technical reason for it. There may be a business reason for it. It simply may be Indiegogo saying, look, if you're going to use our services over and over again, you need to depend not on us to get the word out there, but on yourself. You need to get out there and you need to pound the pavement in order to make sure that your campaign is seen by other people. They do talk about this a little bit in some of the sections that they're talking about getting your campaign out there for advertising purposes. But the thing is that while I can understand that, and I would call that de-ranking in some sense, because they're choosing for you not to actually show up in their search bar, at the same time, if I'm making inquiries into why exactly this is happening and they're being marked as resolved when I'm being told that they will get back to me and they never do, that to me tells me something a little more is going on. What that something exactly is, I cannot say, and I will just leave it at that. Also, can you go to another platform? You go right ahead and go to another platform. Indiegogo was, up until this point, the go-to, whereas it would not block people from actually going out there and selling things, like Kickstarter does. Kickstarter specifically blocks people from advertising and putting up campaigns that they don't like, that are not politically correct. If the entertainment that you're trying to sell is comic books, there is a site going up right now which an individual is putting up with his own money. I think it's called Fund My Comic, where none of these shenanigans are going to happen. Whether or not that flies, I'm not entirely sure. If someone wants to put in the comments where they can find it and whether or not it's going to fly, you go right ahead. If you want to put in the comments some alternatives where you can post what you're trying to sell, you go right ahead. Now, I guess I should say where the definitive proof is that there is actual shadow banning, because I asked this question on my YouTube channel, and someone who is much more tech savvy than me got back to me and said, yeah, I thought this was something that didn't actually exist, but I have checked the code, and yes, you are correct. So if you cannot find what you are trying to sell or what someone else is trying to sell within the search bars of where you're trying to sell it, or even on normal search engines like Google or any alternative that you might find, and you want some proof that this is actually happening to you, it's not just in your mind, well, here's what you do. And I'm just basically going to read you verbatim what has been told to me. He says, I checked the web page source code and they have injected this tag. And I'll flash that up on the screen. It basically says meta name equals, in quotes, robots, contents equals, in quotes, no index. Search engines like Google use robots/spiders to find web pages. This tag specifically tells search engine robots to ignore your page. Also, I'll link in the description a website that you can go to read a little more about this. The email goes on to say, it must have something to do with Indiegogo's system. I honestly thought the shadow banning thing was a bit overblown, but sadly, it looks like I was wrong. I've checked 5 other pages and they don't have the no index tag, and I tried to pick a range of projects. Also, I checked some of the comics section just in case. They applied in certain sections, so this person checked and there was a list of OK campaigns and a list of not OK campaigns where they were not indexed. So if you wish to find out whether or not you're on this list, and you definitely have been shadow banned by this no index code written into the page that you're trying to sell on, just go to the page itself. Now, unfortunately, the only way you can do this is after you've been shadow banned, so after you've opened your campaign, but it's the best you got. So go to the page itself. Left click on an open section of the page, then go down to, which is usually the bottom of what appears, and you hit View Page Source. When the page source comes up, all you do is Control F so that you can find what you are looking for. Insert into the search bar no index as one word, NOINDEX. If you have a page that has been shadow banned in this way, it will take you directly to the line of code where it shows you that there is no index code inserted into your page. Again, it should look like meta name equals, in quotes, robots, content equals, in quotes, no index, or some version thereof. And I'll have to say, once again, I did submit a formal complaint to Indiegogo asking them to remove the no index part of the code from my page so that it could be searchable at the very least by other search engines, and I got no reply, and the issue was listed as resolved. So it comes down to, what can you do about all this? And I've been, as I said, sprinkling that through this video every once in a while. First of all, you need to build an audience before you actually sell. Second of all, you need to, if at all possible, have a list to be able to directly connect with that audience so that you can tell them what is going on just in case something like this happens. Thirdly, if you wait until this happens and you try to do this while you have an open campaign, good luck to you, because you're probably just not going to get there. And by way of example, I'll let you know, again, from my first campaign, which was put in the marquee for at least a week because it was showcased as something that people should go look up, and this campaign, which actually is shadow banned, at the end of 60 days, which is the original campaign for each, I'm about $10,000 behind. Now, of course, last year was not this year, and certainly people have less money this year. That could be part of it. But I specifically think that the de-ranking and delisting of my campaign so that you cannot see it within Indiegogo has impacted the amount of money that I would have received from this campaign. Oh, and by the way, I went to Indiegogo's analytics as well and looked up, because they do list their analytics of where people come from to buy your product very well. And they have listed that people have searched up my campaign on their website and found it and went to it and then bought the product. I don't think this can happen because no one can find it in this way. And again, I made that statement and complained to Indiegogo and got no response. So again, really, the point is, be prepared for this to happen before you begin to sell. Have multiple platforms wherewith you can interact with the people who might want to buy your product. Certainly the people who definitely want to buy your product. Make sure you contact them directly if it is at all possible. And if this happens and you're not ready for it, or honestly, if it does happen and you're ready for it, the biggest thing that you can do, which is what I'm doing right now, is monetize the living daylights out of the fact that these people have, in effect, shadow banned that you're trying to sell to people. Again, I don't think it actually makes up for what I would have gotten if I had been listed on their website, but at the same time, it does help. Please, for the sake of everyone, do not misuse that. Do not claim that you are shadow banned when you are not. And as I have indicated a few minutes ago, there is a specific way to check whether or not definitively this is happening. Again, it's not exhaustive. There may be other ways that you are being shadow banned if you are, or unable to find things because they have been shadow banned. But at the very least, as I said at the beginning, do your research before you actually make any claims. And if at all possible, record that research so that you have evidence of this. All right, so hopefully that was helpful to some of you. And as I have been saying throughout this video, I have an open Indiegogo campaign. You can still order my graphic novel from Indiegogo. You just need to have the link, and the link is in the description and in the pinned comment. I have been showing you my campaign and some of the art for my campaign in the background. As I said, it is an 82-page graphic novel of just plain old superhero fun. So if you have any inclination whatsoever in that direction, if any of that looks good to you at all or sounds good to you at all, you should click on that link in the description and go on over and see if my graphic novel is for you. All right, I'll leave it there. I'll see you later. Bye.